I think the subject about the war in Yugoslavia was somewhere in my head for many years. I had a good friend who was a journalist that his first coverage of being a war journalist was in this war. And he was so deeply touched by it, and also doing comparison to situations in Israel, to things he experienced there, or the reconciliation process afterwards. So I was always curious to see what this area looked like after such a vicious and cruel war. How does the parts that apparently seems to live peacefully now, was there a real reconciliation there? And the whole dealing with the trauma, I thought it had a very direct dialogue to all kind of other parts in my identity. And once Irina Zudruch, my dramaturg, and myself came up with the idea after doing a third generation, which was also a meeting between Palestinians, Israelis, and Germans, and it created also some kind of a platform of different sides with different agenda to come and talk together, to look at Berlin and some kind of like a common ground field, which can bring different parties of conflict to create some kind of an artistic dialogue. And then our first tryout was really to try and get people that are second generation or came as refugees to Berlin after this war. We did not have a clue that the piece would be about this trip. Usually when we do those research projects, then we start in the beginning, something between 2-3 first weeks, just researching together. So meeting experts, doing field trips. And a lot of times it just opens a window to the world that we want to touch or to the feelings to come up. But because this is really such a complicated and loaded matter, somehow it became very clear that the trip there brought up so many things. So the most interesting thing that happened inside the group was actually the trip itself. So then from there it started to grow that the piece would be a reflection on the trip. For example, there is one fight that is like the most loud fight on stage that we have that really happened, and when it happened in real life it was very emotional and people went crying the same night to the hotel, and it took time to so there were also a lot of very emotional fights and breakdowns, and I think we were during rehearsals we had this amount of tissue ready for use, and we really had to do a one step and take the responsibility of one step beyond creating a play, but really taking care of a very vulnerable group of people that are handling very deep wounds. So we had a routine of doing massage and Reiki to each other sometimes in rehearsals, and to have private talks. So until a certain point, it didn't really felt like a normal rehearsal process. So it's as if a play kind of erupted out of a very personal group therapy process. Well, I try to be obviously the observer all the time, but we asked everybody to keep some kind of a diary during the trip, and we would do also meeting every evening in a way to reflect back on the days that we have and to create conversation and to have writing missions together. So, and this is also something that is unique to this kind of work, that I'm not the only author in this piece. There's a lot of input of the actors into it. I mean, at the end, I was rewriting everything and doing the editing, or taking from things that the actors brought and writing it. So it became the whole piece like some kind of really a mutual diary of this experience. In the first part of the work, we did not even discuss the play. So everything was on the table. Everything was open with the awareness that things are being opened. There will be there maybe for the use of the play. But later there was a process where the more intimate things had to go into the play, then actors would be maybe a bit suddenly more afraid about it, or then we had to distance it a little bit and to put some fictions also into the fact, or to play a little bit with the biographies, or to change role in some cases. There was a later stage of both the actors doing the step of being willing and wanting to expose themselves, but at the same time putting a little bit more of an artistic disguise on it, or fictional disguise, in order to create also some kind of layer of protection. I think somehow you see this reflection through also the presence of Orit and Nils in the play. Just because in the first look you don't understand why actually you do need the Israeli and the German inside the Balkan group. But I thought that this is also something that makes the piece a piece about a human or an international subject. It's not really specifically about the war on the Balkan. It's about people who either them or their family have been through a war. So it echoes back to a lot of questions about identity, about, for German, obviously, about carrying something in your past and carrying the guilt for something that you don't know whether you're connected to or not, about the roles of perpetrators and victims, whether it's not specifically that you experience, maybe it's even somewhere that it's in your family or in your national past. Questions about the ability to forgive, the ability to move on, what do you want to remember, what does it mean actually to survive a war? Because historically we think a war is over, everything is okay, now there's peace, people should be happy, but then you understand how those wounds, of course, are very deep there inside the people who live there and they never go away, but how they echo even sometimes from one generation to another. And I think Germany and Israel are two very vivid examples also to look at it. So I think it creates some kind of dialogue about the subject and not just about the war.